Hi, my name is Tony Dollar, and I teach ELD at Lake Middle School. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Because of the COVID situation, I've been teaching asynchronously this year, which has been very challenging. So I will say right at the top here that one of the things I discovered was that when I was loading a bunch of assignments into Schoology for a particular day, students would only engage in one or two of them. And I think it was because windows were opening and they were having a hard time getting back to the assignments and stuff. So I decided early on that I pretty much assign everything through Pear Deck. Also, that way the students just click on one link, they do all of their practice and all of their work inside the Pear Deck, and then they don't have to click on anything else. And in fact, if they just stop halfway and close it, it still records everything that they've typed in there. And if they reopen it later, all their answers are there. I do assign stuff occasionally outside of Pear Deck, but for the most part, I do everything in Pear Deck. So very quickly, I'm going to walk you through the lesson I did Wednesday, November 4th. We always start with a warm-up. On this particular day, I was using this really cool website called Vocaroo, where it's a free recording site where they can, I wanted them to read these sentences out loud and record them just so they could kind of get the hang of how these language forms were used. And then on the following slide, they paste the link in here. This is just a text slide. This is a website slide. As you can see, it's vocaroo.com here. Okay, so then they did that a second time with the other language pieces, paste their link in here. And then I always record about a 5-minute language video explaining how to use the language we're working on that day. In this case, again, it was sequencing words before, after, as, and while. And I always keep these under 5 minutes because if I make them longer, the students really don't watch the whole thing. But if I keep them under 5 minutes, typically they will watch the whole thing. So, all right, then we jump right into language practice. This is so long here at 25 minutes only because I combined independent practice and guided practice into one on this particular lesson. But typically, I would separate it into two, like 10 minutes of guided practice and then 15 minutes of more independent type practice with less scaffolding in it. So I've tried different strategies here, but pretty much every lesson I take an article from Newsela and I just break it into chunks, and then I have them work through the text on each slide. So on this first slide, you could see they're reading the text, they're highlighting the content vocabulary here in pink, highlighting the sequencing words in blue, and then circling commas so they can get some familiarity with the language. On the second slide, I highlight a sentence here, and then I want them to just rewrite it. So this is a text slide where they can just see this slide, and then they'll have a little spot to rewrite the sentence themselves, hopefully catching the comma. Most of them actually did. And then we do that for a few different chunks of text, and then we switch up which language form we're actually working with. You can see here we're doing as and while. On some of these, we're also doing before and after, as you can see down here. And then we get to the end, and I have them actually identify the sentences that follow these patterns right here on their own. I believe it was the first sentence here follows the pattern, and then there's another sentence here that starts with after that follows the pattern. And so the idea was for them to highlight the sentences and then rewrite them here in this blank. And I do this with a drawing slide because that way they can highlight, draw, circle, and then they can also add text and place it right here in this box. The culmination of the lesson is always the application of language for me in ELD. And so I usually have them put all the language together on this slide. You can see all the yellow arrows here. They're starting to finally get used to instructions always being in yellow, because I think sometimes they would look at the slide and sort of be overwhelmed and not know what they were supposed to do. But now they've gotten used to the instructions are always in yellow. All the important information is in yellow. And so they do it that way. After the application of language, I always record like a 1-minute video on portability, just explaining how they can take this language and use it in other contexts or in other classes. I give them a couple of examples. And then for the exit ticket, I have them come up with an example that has nothing to do with what we read today, nothing to do with the ELD class, but where they might use this language, in this case, as, while, after, and before. And this was actually my first day doing a Flipgrid video assignment. And it was such a success that I use it all the time now. Sometimes I even use it for the application of language and have them record a verbal response instead of a written response, which is super helpful. And then on the last slide is their homework, because I only assign I only have lessons 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I usually assign something that gets them away from the computer. This day was 20 minutes of reading. And then the way I verified that they did the homework was the following lesson. It will have the warm up will be to write a paragraph about what you read. So this is just a typical lesson. It does vary quite a bit on what I do, but for the most part, they look very similar to this, depending on what kind of language pieces we're working on. But I hope that's helpful to anybody watching this. Feel free to reach out to me or even to Brian if you would like a copy of these slides or anything like that. I'm happy to help in any way I can. So I hope you're all hanging in there and doing well in this very challenging year. But if we stick together, we can do this. So have a great day.